Several pro-war pundits have defended Donald Trump's actions against Iran, including the assassination of its top general, Qassim Suleimani. But the various media outlets where you see these individuals give their expertise commentary or expert commentary usually don't talk about the fact that they have significant financial ties to the military-industrial complex, that they work on boards for many of these private military contractors. And so Lee Fang over at The Intercept did an excellent job covering this, drawing attention to it. And I think that it's important that every time you see one of these individuals on cable news or network news, that you know where they're coming from, what influences their perspective, and how they profit off of encouraging more war with various countries in the Middle East. So as Lee Fang writes in The Intercept, many of the pundits who appeared on national television or were noted in major publications to praise the president's actions have undisclosed ties to the defense industry, the only domestic industry that stands to gain from increased violence. Jack Keane, a retired Army general, appeared on Fox News and NPR over the last 3 days to praise Trump for the strike on Soleimani. Keane has worked for military companies including General Dynamics and Blackwater, and currently serves as a partner at SCP Partners, a venture capital firm that invests in defense contractors. So we know who he is. And I want to go to a clip showing you the type of commentary he shares on cable news. Just to give you some more context into the clip, he wanted to go after Obama for not being hard or aggressive enough against Iran. Take a look.
It was obvious that in the prior administration, the strategy was to negotiate, to deal, and to try to create an environment that de-escalated through that avenue. But clearly, this president has a different way of going about it. And as I said at the top, he is the first one to take out Soleimani, which is something that was probably opportunities that these other presidents, President Obama, President Bush, had, I would imagine.
Yeah, there is a definite strategy here. This Trump administration looked at the appeasement strategy, as I would define it, that President Obama exercised for 8 years as his seminal foreign policy objective. It was his Nixon moment, going to China, so to speak, is what he was trying to achieve. And he thought, by appeasing the Iranians, the nuclear deal was the centerpiece of it, that they would act responsibly and join the community of responsible nations. And what did we get? We got $130 billion put in their hands, fueling the civil wars in Syria and Yemen, hundreds of thousands of rockets in Lebanon. The Middle East was put on fire. And as a result of it, this administration came in and fundamentally rejected that strategy, and with our allies, definitely has a strategy. And it's to confront the Iranians using diplomatic and economic means to bring them back to the negotiating table, not just to stop nuclear weapons and missiles, but to curb their behavior in the region. That is a sound strategy.
So there's Jack Keane encouraging an escalation of war, all-out war with Iran. He is criticizing the Obama administration for one of its accomplishments in signing the Iran nuclear deal, which did exactly what it was meant to do, prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. And as soon as Donald Trump pulled out of that deal, what did Iran do? And granted, a year later, they complied as long as they could. They started enriching their uranium. So how has Trump made the situation better? He hasn't, but that's precisely what someone like Keane would want. He wants an escalation of war. I have so many other examples for you, but I want Jared to jump in.
The hard part is trying to jimmy the facts to make sure that it fits this argument that, hey, although things are falling apart, it's actually a good thing. And to say that, yeah, this dismantling of any kind of peace and any kind of relations between anyone else is a good thing, or it's bad just when they get it versus when we have it. If you notice every time, and this what pushes to the money part. Everyone's capitalist here, obviously, so then you're looking just to pursue your monetary goals. That's all they're doing here. Anytime they bring up foreign countries getting $130 billion, stacks of cash given to the Iranians, pallets of money put on tarmacs, all these types of terms that Hattie likes to deal in and many other pundits, as well as these guys like this, is to make sure you go, those dirty people don't deserve any money. We do. We deserve the money.
Right.
Hey, when our money, and then Trump talking about how he spent trillions of dollars on the military and I've rebuilt the military, was falling apart. You guys remember anytime they brought up Obama tuck-tailing and running and what is it, cut and run from other countries. That was when they were upset with him. When he was pulling off drone attacks, killing people that didn't deserve it, and pursuing and continuing the war in Afghanistan, things like that. You didn't see these military guys. You didn't see Fox News saying, how dare this president do this? There's plenty of things to criticize Obama for. These types of folks did not criticize him for those actions. Now, when progressives did, they caught it because they're like, how dare you criticize a president that's actually doing something better than what most Republicans would do? So that division was there. If they really had everything to be against Obama on, they would be against him on these things. But that's what he did that they enjoyed. As long as these continuous military industrial complex, we're doing great with you. It was the times that he pulled back on those things in small movements that they were like, how dare you?
Actually, I think it's worse than that. I don't think that they've given him any credit for doing their bidding, right? Escalating war, expanding Bush era foreign policy. They didn't give him any credit for that. They've criticized him as being weak on national security over and over again. Obama played it wrong when it came to foreign policy. He thought that there was a way to appease the right wing. There's no appeasing the right wing. They're never gonna give you credit. In fact, he killed a US citizen abroad in a drone strike, okay, with no due process. And by the way, the US media barely even covered that story. And then after that, did a drone strike on his 16-year-old son abroad. Okay, so that's who Obama was when it came to foreign policy. So don't let any of these rabid right-wingers who are profiting off of war tell you that he was weak on foreign policy. If anything, he played along with their nonsense too much. And that did, in my opinion, further destabilize that region. And so one other thing that I have to clarify, because you're gonna hear this argument over and over again, it's a straight out lie. Right-wingers keep claiming that Obama gave Iran pallets of money after the Iran nuclear deal was signed. The United States froze the assets of the Iranians, okay, until that Iran nuclear deal was signed. This was part of the negotiation. The United States was not the only country involved in this negotiation. As you know, Russia, China, and European countries were involved as well. And so it was their assets. It's not like US taxpayer money went to Iran. Pallets of money were not delivered to Iran in the form of taxpayer money. That was their money that was purposely frozen as leverage so they would sign that Iran nuclear deal, and that is what they did, okay? So that's really the heart of that story, or the reality of what happened.
The whole point of sanctions and negotiations is how it would work. And again, it comes, and I hate to always have to bring this up, but it was the first thing that President Trump brought in when he went down that escalator. You gotta hate these groups of people that look this certain way and that speak this certain language and that believe this certain religion, is that they don't deserve anything. So even in you have a negotiation, you have to give something back. They're like, no, we can't give them anything, because remember, we hate them. And actually, their motivations are always based in evil. Their motivations is not based in the fact that after the sanctions came down, that they were struggling and they're like, oh man, we gotta get off under these sanctions, fine. I'd rather get off under this than to pursue something else, which is verifiably put in place as what was working. But no, we can't give them any kind of credit for that, because that would undercut the original thought process that they're all just evil.
The important thing to remember is that they're dishonest actors. People like Jack Keane, they're dishonest actors because they want more war. So they're going to purposely misrepresent what's going on in the Middle East, or in any other country for that matter, if it means that misrepresentation, those lies, will lead to escalation for more war, because that's how they profit. I'm gonna give you another example. So Van Hipp, chair of the lobbying firm American Defense International, which represents more than 24 defense contractors, including Raytheon, Planeteer, and General Atomics, the manufacturer of the MQ-9 Reaper drone used in the Soleimani slaying, published an opinion column on Fox News' website praising Trump and suggesting increased pressure on the Iranian government. And since we're talking about Obama, let's talk a little bit about David Petraeus, okay? David Petraeus has been in the news a little bit lately, okay?
So David, about him in a while, huh?
Well, he's around. David Petraeus, the retired general who once commanded US forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, notably works for Kohlberg, Kravis, Roberts, and Company, the investment firm with holdings in several major defense contractors that is reportedly moving to build up its defense portfolio at a time when military budgets are skyrocketing. With that said, let's take a quick look at what Petraeus had to say about the assassination of Soleimani.
What has happened here, I think, is frankly that we lost the element of deterrence, the component of deterrence that was seen as American will. Our drone, $130 million drone, was shot down, did nothing significant in response. 5% of the world's oil production taken out of operation. Numerous attacks on shipping, and then attacks on our forces, ultimately, of course, killing an American and wounding 4 of our soldiers. So ultimately, the president appears to have decided that it was necessary to take an action to shore up deterrence, to show that we were not going to accept this.
Does this do that?
And then,
does this deter?
Well, you have to see. Again, the question is now, what will Iran do?
Does this deter? And he knows that Trump's actions do not lead to any type of deterrence. He knows that it's an escalation. He knows that this could lead to a full-blown war, but he'd make money off of it. That wasn't disclosed on Face the Nation. This well-produced, highly funded, well-resourced show didn't have an opportunity, apparently, to disclose Petraeus's financial ties. And so one of our members, Leroy, says, I've always been disgusted by these pundits. None of them have to deal with the consequences of the war they're beating the drum for. Sickening. And you're right. And it's about time that these media outlets understood that there are people out there who want to know the truth. So let them know. Don't watch these shows. If they're purposely being misleading or deceptive, or if they're withholding information about what influences these experts in their commentary, then you shouldn't be watching them. You shouldn't be trusting them. I mean, these are the shows that get all the attention. They get the viewership, right? Supposedly. But they don't do any justice to the American people by telling them the truth about what's really going on. And they are precisely the type of so-called journalists who gave a giant green light to the war in Iraq.
If you think about how important things are to folks, especially in America, we're big on our sports, we're big on competition. If there's some kind of commentator or a play-by-play guy or a referee, anyone who thinks this guy who's in charge of at least telling me what's going on in the game has any kind of ties or any kind of fanfare to one of the teams that I'm not specifically rooting for, oh, I don't want him on the air. I can't believe this guy would say such a thing. Oh, he's such a homer. We get so mad just from sports. That's a game, bro. That's a final score that we're worried about. But when it comes to people who are actually who are being financially given tons of money based off of going on TV and lying to you so that people can die and we can continue and start more wars against people we just don't really see as people, that's okay. Hey, we don't have to disclose that. But if the person is connected to the wrong entity when it comes to who I'm rooting for, get him off my television. How could you guys betray me like this? Why don't we have that same level of fire in our bellies when it comes to something much more important?
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.